Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's exactly where I wanted that.
Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and I am so glad that you've joined us this morning. We do have a lot to cover. We're going to talk some New York State issues. We're going to give you some updates on stories we've been talking about all week. But first, let's go to viewer comments. Of course, if you're new to the program, you see that number on the bottom of your screen. You can send in comments throughout the day, 24/7. And we try to do our best to read those comments during the broadcast. And you can also send a wave emoji or just type in wave. And we add that to the wave count on the bottom of the screen. Let's start with this. Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. I wish Trump would spend more time on getting our money back he threw away. He's more worried about the war in Ukraine than the damage he did to the people he is supposed to be watching over. Putin wants Zelensky's land, and Zelensky isn't interested. Zelensky and Putin need to figure this out, so do something you can have an influence on, Donald. Ain't he a scream? These are tough. Trump Nokia lied about having meetings with China about tariffs. Fake news? Ha. Recessions being mentioned in 44% of earning calls. Housing sales plunge, airline uncertainty, and on in nauseam. Thank you, Rick. Next up, MTB writes, hey, Frank, hey. Just watching Jesse Waters on Fox. Had Adam Carolla on his show. Adam said if the president said he loved golden retrievers, the Democrats that owned them would show videos of themselves kicking them. You know, that's a good reference. We're going to talk about Tesla and the activist DA not seeking charges against someone that was on camera vandalizing, what was it, $20,000 worth of damage to Teslas. We'll talk about that in a moment. Also, this viewer saying that they caught Sheriff Allard's interview yesterday, downloaded the website from the sheriff. Yeah, it's pretty legitimate, they say. Yeah, we were talking with Sheriff Allard yesterday. I was enjoying when he's on the program. And I was talking about the app to their to the sheriff's office. Highly recommend it. I was very impressed with it. When I was told about it, apparently it's not that new, but it was to me. So we appreciate the sheriff being on. You can find that full interview on our YouTube page. We posted that yesterday. Okay. As an update from this week, Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, described the shocking moment that a mask-wearing thief hooked, is a term that she used, her pricey Gucci bag during that Easter outing. She said it was kind of shocking, actually, because it was sitting right by my feet. I actually felt my purse. He hooked with his foot and drug it a few steps away and dropped the coat over it and took it. I thought it was my grandkids kicking me in the leg, but it was very professionally done. It tells me that this happens all the time to people and that they live in communities where this is a danger, and it reaffirms why I'm here. Very much, if it can happen to her, very much so that it's happening to other people. You figure with the security that she has. No one wasn't sure whether she was targeted because of her role as the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and deferred to investigators, about the thieves' motives. Now, no one has been identified. They said because of the mask. Anyway, it doesn't look good. No arrests have been made. No one identified. She said, I think I was a busy grandma with 4 grandkids under the age of 4. That's how vulnerable people can be. So I think we need to be aware, but also be making sure there's consequences for people like that make a living off of harming other people. Now, we learned earlier in the week that her bag costs about $4,400, contained about $3,000 in cash, as well as her driver's license, passport, DHS badge, makeup, checks, bank card, healthcare card, medication, and apartment keys. Adding that the secretary was using the money to treat her family to dinner, activities, and Easter gifts. Also, inside the purse was a, what would you call a pocketbook, if you will, which sells for $600. That's according to the complaint filed with local police. There you go. There's an update. Through her tenure at the helm of DHS, Noem has frequently been spotted out in the field during illegal immigration roundups, clad in identical uniforms to officers. She said on this podcast yesterday, you don't learn how vulnerable we are if you don't realize the weak spots. And that's why I'm out there on the front lines, talking with them and finding out, what do you really need to do your job? And do you understand what the president wants you to do? The communications with the American people is important, but it's also important for me making decisions every day. I don't want to take all my information from people sitting behind desks in Washington. So there is an update from a story we brought to you earlier in the week. Okay. Let's talk about Pete Hegseth. That seems to be, well, arguably the biggest story in the mainstream media. They're trying to, I can't tell you how many articles have either in their headline or numerous times throughout the piece the word chaos. Late yesterday, it was announced that his chief of staff, Joe Casper, is now out in what is being described as a turf war. So would this be the 4th person to be let go in Hegseth's circle? It is reported that Joe Casper is leaving the Pentagon amid a turf war that has resulted in several high-level departures and threats of subjecting staff to polygraph tests. Casper, who left his role as chief of staff last week, was expected to stay on in a different capacity at the Pentagon, but he decided to move to the private sector amid the turmoil. That's according to Politico. His exit comes a month after he fired off a memo announcing an investigation into unauthorized disclosure of sensitive and classified information across the Department of Defense. Pentagon Senior Advisor Dan Caldwell, former Deputy Chief of Staff Darren Seltnick, and Colin Carroll, former Chief of Staff to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, were each escorted out of the building in a series of firings last week in the aftermath of the leak probe. The investigation was launched after Hegseth reportedly became enraged that word of the Department of Government Efficiency Chief Elon Musk's March visit to the Pentagon was leaked to the New York Times. I'll hook you up to a blanking polygraph, Hegseth shouted at Admiral Christopher Grady, the then acting chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, after learning of the leak. That is according to the Wall Street Journal. The Defense Secretary also accused several others of being responsible for the leak, including Lieutenant General Doug Sims, the Joint Staff Director, whom Hegseth also threatened to hook up to a polygraph machine. Casper's March memo noted the polygraph test could be administered in accordance with applicable law and policy as part of the hunt for the leakers. It's unclear if anyone was actually subjected to a polygraph test. Caldwell, Carroll, and Seltnick accused unnamed Pentagon officials of slandering their character with baseless attacks and suggested leaks were not the reason they were fired in a joint statement. The trio wrote on X All three of us served our country honorably in uniform. For two of us, this included deployments to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And based on our collective service, we understand the importance of information security and worked every day to protect it. At this time, at this time, we still have not been told what exactly we were investigated for, if there is still an active investigation, or if there was even a real investigation of leaks to begin with. Now, the New York Post is reporting that the trio clashed with Casper before he ordered the leak probe, and that the firings were the consequence of a turf war involving Hegseth's former chief of staff, who felt threatened that more and more of his portfolio was being given to Seltnick and Caldwell. So, turf war, chaos. Those are the big terms being used today. According to the Wall Street Journal. Is this Wall Street Journal? I believe so. Yes, Wall Street Journal. Polygraph threats, leaks, and infighting. The chaos inside Hegseth's Pentagon. The defense secretary has chastised top military officers and staffers as he seeks to quiet a storm he helped create. And this is the article that I had just mentioned where they said that Pete Hegseth shouted at Admiral Christopher Grady that he'll hook him up to a blanking polygraph. Now, Grady was never subjected to a polygraph, by the way. And Hegseth would go on to accuse a number of other people for the leaks, as I mentioned. Your thoughts on Pete Hegseth? Do you think he lasts through the trials and tribulations? CNN puts it, he gets him what he needs. Hegseth's new favorite advisor helped set up the Signal app on one of the secretary's computers at the Pentagon. Everybody's getting these exclusives. This was a real concern, a real issue during Trump's first term with the leaks, the anonymous sources. Now, you know my thoughts on anonymous sources. I think sometimes there's reliable sources. I think other times they're either completely fabricated out of thin air, or it is some very low-level employee, but it gives them enough wiggle room, them meaning the media, enough wiggle room to say, indeed, someone inside the Pentagon said X, Y, and Z, when in fact they were perhaps the window washer inside the Pentagon. So last month, after news broke of Hegseth using Signal to discuss sensitive military operations in violation of Pentagon policy, one of his closest military aides made an unusual inquiry to the Defense Department's chief information officer. Would they grant an exception so Hegseth could keep using Signal freely? I don't understand, and this is just my ignorance. Why is Signal so important to Pete Hegseth? Has anybody, we'll put this out to viewers, anybody out there use Signal? I'm just not overly familiar with it, and I don't know why, at least according to CNN, this seems so important to Mr. Hegseth. So, according to CNN, that this is now his new favorite advisor that helps set up the Signal app for him to use. In a statement to CNN, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said the Secretary of Defense's use of communication systems and channels is classified. However, we can confirm that the Secretary has never used and does not currently use Signal on his government computer. All right. There you go. There's your updates on Pete Hegseth. We can talk more about it if you'd like. I know it is a major topic throughout the media landscape, but we have a lot of other topics to discuss on this morning's broadcast. By the way, coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, I forgot to mention, we're going to be talking with a mayoral candidate here in Corning. We're going to be talking with Pam Walker. That'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. I got a very exciting announcement about a guest that we'll have next week on the program. I'll save that, keep you hooked, save that until a little bit later on. Now, the viewer who mentioned our interview with Sheriff Allard, one of the things that came up on yesterday's broadcast, and I don't want to forget to remind you that tomorrow is National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. And the sheriff had mentioned that in Steuben County, from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. tomorrow, you can go to the Steuben County Sheriff's Office and drop off those prescription drugs, a prescription drug take-back. So that is tomorrow. All right. Let's take our first break of this Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Is it time for your next oil change? Are you too busy to do it yourself? Let the professionals at Quick Lube do it for you. With 2 locations better to serve you, Quick Lube makes it easy. Get your oil and filter changed and never leave the comfort of your vehicle. No appointment is needed. Just drive up and let Quick Lube do the rest. Keep your motor humming with Quick Lube on South Main Street in Elmira and Chemung Street in Horsehead.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Football Show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Just a quick update on RFK Jr., the kind of fascination that we've had this week, and really going back further than this week, but is the hatred of a Kennedy by the Kennedy family, by Democrats, and by the media. Has been very interesting to watch, something I never thought we'd experience in our lifetimes, where Kennedy would be mocked, ridiculed, attacked on a regular basis by the media, and so much so that when he talks about removing petroleum-based dyes from our food, the media, in all seriousness, defends petroleum-based dyes in our food. And earlier in the week, RFK Jr., I thought, had a great point. If you want to add petroleum-based dyes to your food in the privacy of your own home, feel free. But don't force it on all Americans. And it was a good point. You know, you want petroleum-based dyes, bring a bottle, just like you would your Tabasco sauce, with you to a restaurant or for your lunch at work. He tweeted out yesterday, for too long, some food producers have been feeding Americans petroleum-based chemicals without their knowledge or consent. These poisonous compounds offer no nutritional benefit and pose real, measurable dangers to our children's health and development. The era is coming to an end, he said, declaring that the United States is restoring a gold standard science, applying common sense, and beginning to earn back the public's trust. And we're doing it by working with industry to get these toxic dyes out of the foods our families eat every day. And to watch the media defend these dyes, I mentioned I didn't expect it, and I should have expected it, if I'm being truthful, that earlier in the week I'm watching the news before I get ready for work, and the reporter talking about getting rid of these dyes said, some experts say, they don't point to the expert, they don't say who that expert is. Some experts say that there is no negative health effects to these dyes. and that limiting these dyes or getting rid of these dyes could actually cost more to the consumers. So just like the party that professes green energy, and they're out destroying electric vehicles. If you're AOC and you're Bernie Sanders, you're flying a private jet at $15,000 per hour to go to your Fight the Oligarchy tour. Now we have a party that's always talking about genetically modified, talking about normally dyes in the food. Now, all for it. It's amazing what happens when someone gets involved with the Trump administration, when someone has a R next to their name. That's when the tides turn and the core beliefs change. So again, fighting global warming by flying a private jet if you're AOC and Bernie Sanders to a Fight the Oligarchy tour event at $15,000 per hour, and others defacing Tesla, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. And in this case, now we are supposed to be pro petroleum-based dyes in our food. We are living in amazing times, folks, aren't we? Hey, by the way, before we get into some of these other updates from the week, we have a couple of college updates. Like I said, we're going to talk about Tesla a little bit later on. A lot about the New York State budget and New York State in general. We're going to hear a lot about this one, folks. If you go to Trump's website, the Trump Organization's website today, you can buy a Trump 2028 hat teasing a third term. The future looks bright. Rewrite the rules with a Trump 2028 high crown hat, says the description on the store's website. They are $50, by the way, if you're interested. The description was later changed to read, "Make a statement with this Made in America Trump 2028 hat. Fully embroidered with a snap closure in the back. This will become your new go-to hat." The rewrite the rules come on is likely a reference to the Constitution's 22nd Amendment, which states that, quote, "No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice." So if that is something that interests you, I know we talk about various politicians that have suggested Trump be put on Mount Rushmore or put on, I can't remember the amount of money, but some type of cash. Also, what was have his birthday off as a national holiday. This fits right in line with that being provocative. How about that? Provocative. When asked by the New York Post why the company had put the potentially provocative, they use my same word, headwear on sale, the spokesperson, Kimberly Benza, responded, "Because it's amazing." Now, if you recall, Trump said last month, and you probably don't recall, because this is about what we talk about with the media and the Trump news cycle. So many things happen in just one day that thinking back a month ago seems like an eternity. But he told NBC News he was not joking about the possibility of another term, but added that it's far too early to think about it. I know we don't have to go through the loopholes and all that. But if you are interested, as of yesterday, you can go to Trump.org's store website and buy a Trump 2028 hat. Now, I'm confused by this story, and I'd love to hear your opinion. I'm getting a lot of waves in, thank you. But I'd love to hear your opinion on this. President Trump, it is reported, plans to meet, or maybe it was even yesterday, with Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, Jeffrey Goldberg was the really Trump-hating journalist, if you want to call him a journalist, from the Atlantic that was accidentally, quote-unquote, put in that Signal app chat. Still, I think that raises a lot of questions and why that ever happened. But Trump announced late yesterday morning that he would be meeting with Goldberg and two other Atlantic reporters for a meeting. Trump did this in his first term too. This always seems to backfire when you meet with the far left reporters because they mischaracterize what happened or what is said. But he said, later today, I will be meeting with, of all people, Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic. and the person responsible for many fictional stories about me, including the made-up hoax on Suckers and Losers and Signalgate, something he was somewhat more successful with. Jeffrey is bringing with him Michael Shearer and Ashley Parker. Not exactly pro-Trump writers either, to put it mildly. He said the three told his team that they were working on a story titled The Most Consequential President of This Century. I am doing this interview out of curiosity and as a competition with myself, just to see if it's possible for The Atlantic to be truthful. Are they capable of writing a fair story on Trump? The way I look at it, what can be so bad? I won. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. I think that was a ruse, saying the title will be the most consequential president of this century, though I do believe that would be the headline. I can see the headline, the underneath, not being so praising, let's put it that way. Now, the reason why Goldberg is deemed anti-Trump, just because of his general reporting, but he published an anonymously sourced article back in 2020 stating that Trump called fallen World War I soldiers losers and suckers. John Bolton, who served as a national security advisor during the first Trump administration, who is not a Trump fan by any stretch of the imagination. John Bolton is very active in the media. Full disclosure, I interviewed him years ago, but he is now going full anti-Trump mode when he is interviewed. He is kind of the go-to person that the left-wing media looks for, because he was National Security Advisor to criticize Trump, and he plays that part perfectly. But he said back at the time, I didn't hear that. I'm not saying he didn't say them later in the day or another time, but I was there for that discussion. So you see, even there, denying that Trump said it, but having to do so in a way to protect Goldberg. It doesn't even make sense that Trump would say that, but that has kind of been Goldberg's reputation or career since that statement. So for whatever reason, Trump met with him yesterday to do an interview. We'll see how that goes. All right, coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about college, such as Columbia, Harvard. We're also, speaking of colleges, we're going to be talking with Chris Callis again. This is on Monday. We're going to be talking about the upcoming college fair that is happening at the Elks Lodge. That's in Elmira. That's next Wednesday. We're going to learn all about that on Monday. So if you have someone in your life that is college age or about to go into college, or maybe looking to switch colleges or getting done with their associates or whatever the case may be, or maybe you are looking to further your education, this is a perfect opportunity. Well, that interview is going to be Monday with Chris Callis, so don't miss that. We've got another big interview next week I can't wait to tell you about. I'll break that news maybe in the 7 o'clock hour. How about that? I'll tell you in the 7 o'clock hour who we're going to have on next week, who I think many of you are going to be very excited about. All right, stay with us. I'm running late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
One of the things I like most about being a mortgage loan officer is helping people make dreams come true.
The most satisfying part is seeing people succeed in accomplishing the purchase of a home.
Whether it's refinancing for a lower monthly payment, a lower interest rate, or to tap in your home's equity.
Whether you're buying your first home or looking to refinance, First Heritage will be here to help.
My name is Cindy.
My name is Tracy.
My name is Peter.
My name is Deb.
We are here to guide you.
Hurry up! Fantastic spring savings at GCP Discount Liquors and Wines. Search no more. Crown Royal Blackberry is here and on sale. Normally $34.99. It's on sale for $29.99 a bottle with no bottle limit. Dark Horse Wines, normally $8.99, is on sale for $6.99 a bottle. Save more with the mail-in rebate. $12 off 6 bottles or $24 off a case. GCP Discount Liquors and Wines in Horseheads. The best in service, selection, and price.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about weed. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 PM News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Thank you, Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple of comments from viewers. This viewer says, the experts you are looking for are the ones making the dye. That's a great point. When they say, some experts say that these petroleum-based dyes will have no negative health effects, you're right. It's got to be quote-unquote experts inside that community, inside the petroleum-based dye community. That is such a good point. Thank you. But that gives them enough, just like with anonymous sources, like I highlight when it comes to the anonymous sources. It could be anybody on the ground level quoting what's happening in the Pentagon. This is the same thing. They gives them enough wiggle room to say we did talk to experts. But why they are taking that stance, I shouldn't be shocked any longer, to be honest. But why they're taking that stance is just, well, beyond the pale, really. They should be very excited about the elimination of petroleum-based dyes from our food. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Can't wait for Vance to run for president. Have Trump as VP. Then get elected and step down. Trump becomes president again, but can't be removed because he wasn't elected for a third time. This will, even as a possible thought, cause such a Democrat and liberal meltdown that it's awesome. Thank you very much for that comment. A couple of quick updates on college campuses. So Columbia, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but we'll talk about it for a little bit because I think it is important. Columbia has been kind of the focal point for this anti-Semitism on college campuses. And without going through all the history, because you know it, but recently they had that president of Columbia talk to Trump and say, yes, we're going to meet your demands. We want our funding. We'll meet your demands. We're going to get rid of anti-Semitism, and we're going to put mask bans and these type of things into place. Gets back to college and essentially says to the faculty that are all upset and in a tizzy over this, saying, no, don't worry. We're just showing Trump really the art of the deal. It is, and then, of course, when that comes out, it did not look good for her, and she is out. So we know that this anti-Semitism has run amok at Columbia and continues to do so. Just to add to that, Columbia University students plan to build tent encampments this week, as soon as this week. Now, this is coming from NBC News, so I'm sure it says pro-Palestinian and not anti-Semitic. This is going to be interesting because, first of all, you have kids. What do they really care about the funding? They don't really, they're not going to see the forest for the trees. They don't really care about this. It's the faculty, the staff that have to worry about this if they lose their funding. But the kids, just like their parents' credit card that they're using, it's never going to run up. It's not going to affect their educational experience. They want to have fun. They want to take pictures at the encampment and show that they're the ones that care the most in their anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-American push. Because if they can take those selfies, they can have the pictures. It'll be liked by a lot of people. And they'll show that they care the most. Isn't that weird? You care the most by being the most anti-Semitic. A group of protesters is planning to set up tent encampments on Columbia University's campuses this week in protest of the war in Gaza, according to 3 people familiar with the planning and a recording of a meeting to plan the action shared with NBC News. The planned encampment comes just over a year after students first erected about 50 tents on a university lawn to protest the war and drew the world's attention. Now, I could see maybe a crackdown on this encampment, But the kids aren't going to get in any kind of trouble. This is what happened last time. No one really received any type of punishment. So I don't see a scenario why these kids wouldn't go out. It's like a big party. And instead of being in their dorms, locked up in their dorms, or just out on the grounds in a tent. The demonstrations in part fueled the Trump administration's efforts to extract concessions from Columbia, saying the university failed to quell anti-Semitism on its campus. Now, planning for the encampments has been shrouded in secrecy. How is it shrouded in secrecy if 3 people talked to NBC News and they shared a whole recording of the meeting that was planning the encampment? Okay. Loose definition of shrouded in secrecy. But the coordinating meeting took place at a community center on Tuesday night in Brooklyn's Bushwick neighborhood, approximately 12 miles from campus. Invitations for the meeting were largely distributed in person or verbally over the phone, according to the person who attended the meeting and asked not to be named due to fears of discipline from the school. More than 100 people were present at the gathering, and all wore masks to conceal their identities. It's unclear if all the participants were Columbia students, the person said. And that's how this is being misused, the masks. That's a prime example. They're doing this to hide their identity. It's not because of health issues. We're going to talk about the mask ban in New York State that isn't looking good. The student organizers did not introduce speakers by names and instead used Signal usernames and code names. Organizers have also refrained from referring to the upcoming encampments as encampments, according to screenshots of Signal messages. Everybody uses Signal, I guess. You use Signal? Anybody out there? From the organizers and conversations with 2 people familiar with the planning of the protests, in writing and verbally participants have designated the encampments with a code name, which kind of is appropriate. Instead of calling them encampments, they call it circus. Kind of works. Organizers asked demonstrators not to arrive on campus wearing masks on the days of the protests, which they said would alert campus security officers. Quote, "This feels so much more organized and careful," the person said of the meeting. Columbia did not confirm or deny whether it knew about the upcoming protests. Well, if you said, hey, do you know about the upcoming protests? I can't deny it now. You just told them. This is really weirdly written. Our focus is on protecting the safety of our community and ensuring that the university is able to proceed normally with all academic activities. We are closely monitoring, as always, for any disruptions, and campus activities are currently proceeding as normal. This is going to be interesting because if they do call the police, remember the first president, not the first, but the first when the encampments took place, just got destroyed by Elise Stefanik at that congressional hearing. So to look tough after, she called the police in on the students. And that cost her job. Now, it didn't cost her job because she let these encampments grow and run wild and this anti-Semitism run amok on college campuses where Jewish students felt threatened, etc. That's not what got her fired or what made her leave. It was because she had the audacity, according to the faculty and the students, to call the police on the illegal encampments. So, something to keep an eye open for this weekend, that encampments may spring up, as they call it, circus, at Columbia University, and we will give you any updates on Monday's broadcast, exactly how that all goes down. We got to take a break because I'm running late, and I see some great comments coming in. And a wave. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
When you think Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel-toe boots, Metguard boots, soft-toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots, all in one location. Hesselson's, Amara Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention high school students, the Elmira Elks College Fair will be be happening April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Elmira Elks Lodge, located at 300 East Gray Street in downtown Elmira. It's open and free to the public. There's free parking. There'll also be mascots as you come in. There'll be up to 50 colleges, representatives from technical schools, universities, in-state, out-of-state, 2-year, 4-year, public and private schools. If you're looking to transfer, this will be the college fair for you. Also a chance to win an instant scholarship drawing at 8 o'clock. Come down to the Elmira Elks College Fair on April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. These media people have no brains. Just to let you know, it's a proven fact that all the illnesses caused by all these illnesses caused by all these artificial dyes. These toxic chemical poisons and processed foods even cause not only numerous cancer, but many other illnesses as well. If you want the list of illnesses, it's easy to do real research. The leftist news media doesn't know how to do that research. And to also let you know, most other countries, especially all Europe, have banned these toxic dyes for over 2 decades plus. What the heck is wrong with people? Who wants any artificial dyes or any artificial garbage in their food? This is a way for government, big pharma, doctors, etc., to make more money by making humans sick, keeping them sick by poisoning their food. Now people don't look for alternative natural medicine. They go to the doctor who poisons them with drugs. All drugs cause internal organ damage, and so many are also multiple forms of cancer as well. I've done the real research for 22 years now, and if people weren't so darn lazy, they only want to listen to their doctors and veterinarians, they'd find out the horrible capitalism that has been going on for 100 plus years, and it started to become worse since the 90s, and since 2005, they've been poisoning us for decades. People need to wake up. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Morning. Well, good morning. Something I don't understand with your show. You always use the word hate, not dislike. Is it to put fuel on the fire? I'm not sure. I didn't know I did that. I guess I probably don't say dislike that much, but I don't think I say hate that much, do I? And by the way, I never try to put fuel on the fire, ever. That is not anything I try to do. I'm just trying to bring you the news. But no, I don't, unless we're talking about like the anti-Semitic hate. Well, yeah, give me some examples. I'm sure I'm not disagreeing with you. I've never noticed it. Comment from a different viewer, but no, I'm not trying to fan any kind of fire. That is not my intention at all. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. I believe that it's good that Trump is meeting with the Atlantic crew. Interesting. Better to meet with the hecklers in the dugout than to hear them shout from the bleachers. That's a good way of putting it. Plus, it'll be a better news story than the women celebrities going for a ride in a spaceship. It'll be interesting to hear. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the article ends up being, because obviously the headline that they gave Trump seems like a trap. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. We know that Goldberg really does not like Trump. We know that he has been, maybe that's a reference to that viewer saying like Trump hating journalists or something like that. Maybe. But we know he is not a big fan of Trump by any means of the word. We know that he has put numerous stories out there with a lot of quote unquote anonymous sources that have been questioned for quite some time. But I want to get back to the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses. It says here that Harvard is relying on its billionaire alumni as it faces down the White House. They believe at the end of the day, their brand is better suited to fight Trump on this than to end anti-Semitic protests, anti-Israel, anti-American protests. But this is interesting too, because, and this is coming from CNN, I don't want to go through all the families that, I mean, some of the names you know, like Mark Zuckerberg, donate, but also he donated Trump's inauguration. I don't know if that makes him a Trump supporter. Ken Griffin, a hedge fund billionaire and major supporter of Republican campaigns, who had previously said he would stop giving to the university over concerns. So what this article is about is that they are depending on their rich alumni to get them through this fight with Trump, but that some of these rich alumni don't want to be a part of donating to a school that has shown that they want to fight for anti-Semitic protests. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, Harvard believes for their brand, they're better off fighting Trump on this. There's people quoted in that piece that said they're proud of Harvard for being a face of the resistance. But again, it's just like Chris Van Hollen, Senator Van Hollen, fighting for this illegal immigrant that was sent back to his home in El Salvador. Is that a winning proposition? So you are saying, I support, I'm going to take my constituents' money, the taxpayers' money, I'm going to fly to El Salvador and show that I'm supporting illegal immigrant that came to this country illegally. It's alleged they have connections to he has connections to MS-13, that he, in the past, his wife had what was a restraining order, that he had abused her numerous times, that he was caught driving the vehicle of a human trafficker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's who you are standing with and saying you will fight till you win. I don't remember the exact quote that Van Hollen said. Just like this, would you, if you're a Harvard alumni, would you want to donate to your alma mater if your alma mater is essentially saying we are going to stand with the anti-Semitic protests that are making Jewish students, that are threatening Jewish students, are making them fear for their lives? But that's, I guess, what the resistance is. I'm not sure. Now, when we come back, we'll give you Chuck Schumer's opinion on what's happening at Harvard. And we're also going to talk about Chuck Schumer for just a second. Got a couple other things. I want to get to that Tesla story, hopefully before the end of this hour. And then we're going to get to some New York State issues. We're going to be hearing from Corning mayoral candidate. She's coming up here in just a bit. Pam Walker, I'm sorry. I didn't say her name. Mayoral candidate Pam Walker. She'll be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. See some other comments coming in. Keep them coming in. Appreciate it. Having fun on this Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us that amazing view of historic Market Street here in the Gafford District. Welcome back. We're broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson's studio. We got some comments from viewers. First one, as a grandparent of an 8-year-old, my wife and I have observed the effects of red dye on our grandson, and it is not a good effect. We do not allow it near him. Very interesting. Thank you. And that's one of the things that RFK Jr. has been pointing to. is the effects on young children. Comment from a different viewer in that same vein. Now the Democrats are fighting Kennedy, removing the bad chemicals from our food. Amazing. Let's face it. I swear if President Trump said he was going to flip a switch and cure cancer, those idiots would find a corrupt judge to sign a court order to prevent him from getting near the switch. This needs to stop. Great point on that. Well, first of all, Trump had said that during, was it during the joint sessions where he said that if I cured cancer, you guys still wouldn't stand up and clap? But you're exactly right. And there's more, sadly, there's more of these judges, kind of activist judges, and we're going to have those stories for you in the next hour. I think there's 3 breaking stories. One, they're ordering somebody back from El Salvador. They're stopping you have to show proof of citizenship to vote. The judge is very interesting to see during the Trump administration how powerful these judges have become, I guess. I don't think it's lawful, but I think they're attempting, right? Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. Speaking of anonymous sources, just wondered, did President Trump ever get to know his accusers? Not when it comes to anonymous sources in the media, that's for sure. I never heard of Signal until it was newsworthy. Then again, I still don't use Instagram or Snapchat. Good for you. I think that's a good thing. I think that's something to be proud of. But yeah, I never heard of Signal, I don't think, before it became newsworthy. Ken writes in, Frank, with every news report, if you read between the lines, we see hypocrisy, misinformation, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, corruption and outright lies from the Democrat politicians, university presidents and professors, musicians, actors, and any other Democrat in a position of influence. But those people aren't really the problem. They wouldn't be able to do and say the things that they do if it wasn't for the legacy media, bastardizing themselves to push the lies and cover up truths. If we ever want a country that pulls together for the good of all, the legacy media has to be reined in and held accountable for their deceitful conduct. Unfortunately, given the amount of money involved and greed, this will never happen. So due to the legacy media's inability to be honest, we will endlessly go through cycles of chaotic Republican presidencies and utopian Democrat presidencies. Thank you, Ken. That's very well put. And I think you're right. I think many people don't put enough emphasis on the importance of the legacy media, the mainstream media, and the power that they have. Now, you're saying, well, their ratings are plummeting. Yes, but there's still a certain level of power there. There's still that soapbox. So I would agree, Ken. Thank you very much. Chuck Schumer says Trump's Harvard attack are lawless, reckless, and vicious. In fact, today, a group of Jewish senators, this is Chuck Schumer, and myself sent a letter to the administration telling them that, look, going against anti-Semitism is important, but what they've done goes way beyond that. Cutting money for medical research and medical schools where there's been no evidence that they've presented of any anti-Semitism. They're not acting on good faith at all. They're acting in a lawless, reckless, vicious way. It's not going to succeed. I believe America will rally behind the ideas that you don't cut medical research and that you don't hurt, by the way, loads. 90% of students didn't participate in any demonstrations. What they're doing hurts all the students, even the Jewish students that might have been hurt by anti-Semitism. It's ridiculous. It is not just ridiculous. It's very, very harmful to the future of this country and to freedom of speech in this country. You know, President Trump's got to learn something. Not everyone's going to agree with him. And he can't illegally use the power of the federal government to say we'll cut your tax status. We'll stop sending you money illegally because I don't like what you say. It's so un-American. Again, you're looking at the fact that it is a real active threat against Jewish students and not keeping your Jewish students safe. To send that letter, Chuck Schumer, it's amazing. It goes to show you, just like fighting 4 red dyes or flying private planes, you're now writing to Harvard to keep up the fight to protect anti-Semitism on college campuses. But that may be why Chuck Schumer had those disastrous poll numbers the other day. We'll talk about that and what CNN had to say about it. A couple other things, but we're running late. Stay with us. Keep those messages coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Your water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
When you're on, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Haley Livingston, Big Fox News.
As always, thanks to our friends at Boss Security and Horseheads for bringing us that amazing view of Market Street. Contact them today. Let's go to some viewer comments as we wrap up this hour, frankly speaking. Good morning. Hey, good morning. Climate Fact Friday with Bob. All right, Bob, thank you. Here we go. I thought since is what? NFL draft weekend. I would get, sorry, there's a typo there. I think since it was NFL draft weekend, I would give a football analogy to the climate. So we all know a football field is 100 yards long. Let's compare that gases in the atmosphere to the field. First, there is the nitrogen is equal to 78 yards. Now we're at the 21-yard line. So oxygen is 21% and gets us to the 1 yard line. That last yard is all the other gases, argon, CO2, and water vapor, etc. The last inch is CO2. And all the other greenhouse gases, CO2 equals the size of a dime distance from the goal line. Now, turn the dime on edge. That is about how much CO2 is caused by human activity. Then Josh Allen knocks the dime over and scores. Go Bills. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. With the climate fact every Friday. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Oh, wait, it's Mark. Hey, Mark. Seems like a lot of Democrats are infiltrating into your show, trying to make your show a town hall, and they are not nice about it. Well, you should see some of the ones I don't read, Mark. But no, it's fine. I love reading the comments, and I love hearing all sides. Chuck Schumer, had bad drop in his favorability. We brought that story to you. Was it early this week, late last week? Chief data analyst at CNN, Harry Enton, warned that a revolt is going on in the Democrat Party as voters grow weary of the current leadership. We had earlier this week where Gavin Newsom was saying he doesn't even recognize his party. He doesn't even know not really what they stand for, but I'll continue. This, I think, is a revolt that is going on within the Democrat Party, Enton said. One poll by Gallup indicated that at this time last year, 80% of Democrat voters believed Democrats in Congress would do the right thing in regard to the economy. Now that number has plunged to 39%. And he said, holy Toledo, that is the lowest number by far in Gallup polling. Democrats hate what their congressional leaders in Washington are doing right now on the key issues of the day, the economy, and their confidence has fallen through the floor. And then he talked about Chuck Schumer. That is the lowest I could ever find in Siena College on how Democrats in Chuck Schumer's home state view him. And keep in mind, if you're thinking about a primary challenge, it would be a few years away. But Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's favorability ratings among Democrats is considerably higher, in the 60s. So he is doing quite poorly in his own home state of New York. I never thought I'd see the day in which just 52% of New York Democrats view Chuck Schumer favorably. It is almost unfathomable. This goes on the back of New York Times, all but endorsing AOC. We've talked about this so often on the program that there is essentially two Democrat parties. There's the AOC wing and there's the Fetterman wing. And it seems as if the direction the party is headed is towards the AOC side of things, with the big rallies with her and Bernie. They want the resistance. Remember, Gretchen Whitmer, it pretty much derailed her presidential run when she had the audacity to meet with Trump in the Oval Office to better her constituents in Michigan. CNN called her out, saying that doesn't look like the face of the resistance, signaling that you better, I got to stop using the word signaling, that you need to be the resistance. You need to fight Trump, or as their slogan goes, do something. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about this. We got a lot coming up in the next hour. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us.
Are you or someone you love at risk of falling in the home? Did you know 80% of home falls happen in the bathroom? If you are still stepping over a tub to take a shower, please call Bath Planet for a free design service. Our certified design team will take all the measurements and work with you to design a bathroom that never has to sacrifice style for safety. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Fresh denim to welcome the season. We're doing florals like you've never seen them. Effortless looks for whatever life brings. These are a few of our favorites for spring.
Let Macy's help you find your favorites for spring.
The Twitter's first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam. Thank you for joining us this morning. Comment from a viewer made it right in at the buzzer of the first hour. Chuck Schumer, yet again, has displayed his lame thought process that generally are also prevalent in his fellow comrades. Thank you very much. I had been promising all morning I would give you a little bit of this piece by Bill Glam, because I think it's important. It's not getting the coverage that it deserves. But he says, in a surprise to us here in Minnesota, because he's in Minnesota, our left-wing local media, inspired or perhaps shamed by the New York Post, is actually pressing a left-wing county prosecutor for her questionable decision not to charge a 6-time Tesla vandal for his politically inspired violence. Mary Moriarty, elected as Minneapolis' county attorney in the wake of George Floyd riots, is a woke prosecutor in the mold of Manhattan's Alvin Bragg and San Francisco's ousted Chesa Boudin. State government employee Dylan Adams was caught on video vandalizing 6 Teslas in late March. He left $21,000 worth of damage, over $10,000 on one single car alone. But rather than prosecute his half-dozen felonies, or even the most significant one, Moriarty let Adams walk, offering him diversion instead of criminal charges. Now, as it has received some bit of a firestorm, mostly in conservative outlets, local reporters there finally cornered Moriarty at an unrelated public event to question her. Moriarty claimed that the diversion reduces recidivism and improves public safety. It, quote, helps to ensure the individuals keep their job. Yes, in this case, his taxpayer-supported job in Minnesota's Department of Human Services, and then he can pay restitution. Yet her office's own published diversion guidelines limit it to property crimes below $5,000. So by her own rules, he does not fit into this diversion. So local reporters have learned that on the same day she announced the Adams diversion, Moriarty charged a 19-year-old woman with no prior criminal record with a first-degree felony for keying one car belonging to a White Castle worker and causing just $7,000 in damage. So not hiding the fact that she supports this violence, this destruction against Trump, the Trump administration. So to paraphrase, for Moriarty's Democrat friends, anything. For teenage fast food workers, the law. Yes, a fast food worker. So now that 19-year-old will be without a job and will receive a felony. So hurt her future prospects for a job. And she did key a car, caused $7,000 in damage, but a diversion for Adams, who left $21,000 worth of damage and over $10,000 to one single car. So they're not even hiding it anymore. The report on Moriarty's hypocrisy was startling, and that it came from the reliable leftist Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and a story that rehashed the many, many lowlights of Moriarty's brief career as county prosecutor. The phrase soft on crime doesn't quite capture her aversion to it. Her local reputation is such that the lead prosecutor of neighboring Anoka County, Brad Johnson, made a point of publicly saying that he would have brought criminal charges against Adam just so that no one gets any silly ideas in the North Metro from this story. So this is open season on Teslas, is what this is signaling. We try to make charging decisions without really looking at the political consequences, Moriarty told the Star Tribune. Can we always predict how a story will be portrayed in the media or what people say? No. But out here in reality, Moriarty's decision sends an unambiguous political message. Crime will be tolerated so long as the criminal is doing it for the correct, leftist-approved reasons. In her view, laws don't apply to Democrats, or at least to those joining the Democrat cause of violence and violent protests against President Trump and his allies. Quote, should we have treated this gentleman differently because it's a political issue? Moriarty complained. We made this decision because it is the best interest of public safety. Or perhaps it's that a non-Tesla driving White Castle co-worker makes for a more sympathetic victim than the 6 owners of pricey vehicles manufactured by the leftist's enemy du jour, Elon Musk. Either way, as a general rule, you get more of what you tolerate. Moriarty is many things, but naive is not among them. So just bringing up that little bit of backstory on a story that we brought to you earlier in the week. Okay. As has been common in the news, before we get into the New York State issues, voters are confronting lawmakers from both parties at their contentious town halls, according to CNN. So you've got Republicans being shouted at and booed and hissed by kind of anti-Trump protesters. Then you have Democrats being shouted at by their fellow Democrats for not doing enough against Trump. Republican Representative Ashley Hinson faced critical questions over Trump administration actions at a town hall on Thursday in Iowa. Several audience members directed pointed questions at the Congresswoman, asking when congressional Republicans will take action to rein in the president. At the outset of the event, Hinson said that she and other Republican members of Congress are working alongside the Trump administration to, quote, undo damage that happened, frankly, during the President Biden years. That statement elicited a mix of applause and loud boos. So you're getting a little more at these town halls where supporters of the representative realize they better show up in force as well, because in many instances what we've seen is these aren't done in good faith. You have people going that don't want to actually hear or have a conversation to hear what the representative's saying. They are going there to get a video of them booing and hissing so that they can be put on TV. I'm not going to go through what each crowd member said and because that's how these, unfortunately, these articles are turning themselves into. But Democrat Representative Mary Gluskamp Perez of Washington State, also faced frequent yelling and disruptions from a town hall crowd on Thursday. At one point was asked, this administration is illegal deporting immigrants without due process, subverting Congress with the dismantling of vital agencies like the CFPB that protects us. Why are we not hearing anger and fight from you? She responded, being angry, being loud feels good, but is it a productive long-term strategy? That's where the crowd all yelled yes. I want to ask this as a fair question. Open, like Mark had said, we are getting viewers from all sides, which we welcome everybody in to Frankly Speaking. What is, I guess, the point of attending a town hall if there's a town hall? Is it to feel good and yell at your representative if you disagree with what they're doing? Is it, I mean, you could say let your voice be heard, but all you're doing is your voice booing and hissing because you're not having the conversation. I mean, I think good pointed questions is fair. I think that's great. I remember the town hall days back, the big ones during Obamacare, the discussion over Obamacare. So I think right now they're just not really that's not the right word. They're really not helpful because it's really turning into a protest and not a conversation or a discussion. But I know people disagree with me on that. So would you attend a town hall knowing that if you wanted to hear from your representative, you're not going to be able to? You're essentially going to just hear boos and hisses from the audience. Do you want to go so you can be one of those booers or hissers? Okay, on the New York State budget, don't forget we have Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker coming up here in just a little bit. We're close to the end on the New York State budget, at least according to Politico. Negotiations on involuntary commitment of mentally ill people to New York hospitals are probably done as lawmakers near a deal on the state budget, according to Carl Hastie. Quote, there's over 300 different policy proposals that were on the table. Some you agree on, some you say you'll pass later, and some you just can't get an agreement on. He and Governor Kathy Hochul and Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins were working behind closed doors on the second floor of the state capitol where the governor has her offices to negotiate her proposed $252 billion. This is the 3 people in a room scenario. Yes, 3 people are doing all this. I know you voted for assemblyman, you voted for state senator. There's 3 people that are having a discussion on what will be in the budget. And because of one-party rule, whatever they put forward will be supported by Democrats. I'm not going to go through all the specifics of what she wants. You know, we talked about it with involuntary commitment, but it looks like we're getting closer to a deal. Now, lawmakers are prepping for virtual budget conferences all weekend. Is the end of the budget in sight? It may be as state legislators prepare to virtually meet throughout the weekend to continue discussing the state spending plan. Speaking with reporters after a leaders meeting on Thursday, State Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins said she plans to remain in Albany to keep negotiating the budget with Governor Hochul and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie. Quote, I'll be here, adding the budget is close, very close. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about the budget. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We got to take a short break. After this next segment coming up, then we will talk with Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker, and I have an announcement of a guest we will have on next week that I think you're going to really want to hear about. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
. Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 PM News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. All right, we are broadcasting live, just wrapping up on some comments, reading some comments here. So I got a little off guard when I saw the beautiful view of Market Street. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. I'm Frank Acom. Okay, here we go. Do you think the oligarchy tour is the left's way of comparing it to the Trump train rallies because they have decided that they need to do what Republicans did because they are in a free fall? If so, I really don't think it's working the crowds. They don't look enthusiastic, although Bernie does draw them in. That's a good point from that viewer. I don't think they're probably trying to do it like the Trump trains because really I think they're just doing the rallies because Trump was so successful in his rallies, and rallies are kind of historically something that people do. I don't know. I don't know. That's a great question. I will say that they are trying. Some are trying to steal some of the playbook ideas of Trump, and I think Bernie has always packed in people to rallies. That's why I've always said if the fix wasn't in by the Democrat Party, because remember the Democrat Party doesn't, as a rule, trust their own voters. So the fix was in with superdelegates that Bernie was never going to win the presidency or the nomination for presidency. So they said, have fun, go to your rallies, pack them in. He was getting comparable to what Trump was getting. So he has a history of these big rallies. Like you said, he packs them in. So it'll probably just keep the momentum going in their mind. Those are two people that are popular. Some people are speculating Bernie's kind of passing the torch on to AOC. So maybe there's a part of that. But I couldn't argue with you if you think it's a Trump train rally copy. Sure. Comment from a different viewer. I always enjoy your Friday feature with Climate Change Bob. It's Climate Fact Bob. I don't think he'd like to be called Climate Change Bob. He should be must-hear radio at the EV charging stations. Kind of like the gas pump ads that are always playing while you're trying to pump gas. Very good point. Would you feel safe at a charging station in your Tesla? There's a question. As state budget deal looms, face mask proposal continues to complicate talks. Can you imagine that's their sticking point? State Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie met with Governor Kathy Hochul for just under an hour Thursday afternoon. Stewart Cousins exited the elevator back to her third-floor office to a wall of reporters with one question. Do we have a handshake deal? No, not yet, she said. I believe by the end of next week we'll be passing bills. We're getting closer. So what's the holdup? In part, it's that this year's budget wildcard, the governor's late in the game push for legislation surrounding the use of face masks in the commission of a crime, appears to have been has seen a resurgence after Hochul seemed to indicate over the weekend that she may be backing off. We didn't know whether this should be done in the budget or in session, which others are suggesting, so that remains to be determined. So it's the face mask that is holding him up. But next week we'll hear with something else, and I don't know. But the New York Post, and we brought the story to you yesterday, it was very troubling. We heard from some viewers commenting on it. Oh, geez, a lot of waves coming in. Thank you. The Post says New York progressive legislators have reportedly gotten behind what may be their most morally disgraceful bill yet, an assisted suicide legislative push. Worse, per Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, the bill has a vote to pass, which may happen as early as next week. This must not happen, reports the New York Post. Assisted suicide is sold to the public as a form of compassion, yet another inversion of reality. In practice, it is anything but. The trouble is, the promised reservation of assisted suicide to the chronically ill and elderly seems somehow always to get expanded until it encompasses young, physically healthy people like Zora Turbek from the Dutch state permitted to take her own life because she was depressed. Or, as in the case with Canada, the poor, the disabled, and the marginalized. Like Alan Nichols, a down-on-his-luck man with a history of mental illness who listed hearing loss as the only health reason for his own euthanasia, which shockingly was then granted. The Trudeau government even tried to sell veteran Christine Gother on suicide simply because she fought to have the Veterans Affairs Department install a wheelchair ramp at her house. The idea that fiscal calculations, i.e. that it's cheaper simply to kill people, like Nichols or Gothier, than to help them, didn't play some role here is dubious at best. I don't want to go through each example of this, but because it's very obviously troubling. And it is a slap in the face to the nearly 3 million Catholics in the state who oppose assisted suicide on religious grounds. And this is New York, remember, where the state couldn't even manage to roll out legal cannabis initiatives without turning it into a complete disaster. And where, within recent memory, a governor shoved old people with COVID into nursing homes, Cuomo, to die and kill others just to make himself look better on television and earn $5 million from a book. Even under the sanest and stablest of governments, state-sanctioned euthanasia is obscene. Here it would be a nightmare. Governor Hochul, this issue is an easy win. Keep fighting the good fight, stand up to the extremes in your own party, and stop the madness if and when it reaches your desk. We also see that New York... okay. I see a lot of comments coming in. Just so you know, I'm going to read those comments, but coming up in our next segment, we're going to be talking with Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker. So don't think I'm ignoring your texts. We will read those when that interview is over. We recorded that interview yesterday or the day before. It is playing today, but after that, otherwise I'd read your comments before we went on the air, but I will read those in the next segment. I'm not forgetting about you. I'm not going to forget about your waves. There is... Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, let's go to break. Let's because I have another article that I want to bring up about New York's schools facing multiple challenges and electric bus transition. We've talked about that at a time when we've been talking about the school budgets here on the program and how there's such an exorbitant increase in many instances and what that fight is going to look like as we near the vote in May. On that, we're going to tell you a lot about the budgets as that nears. But right now, I got to take a break. And then when we come back, Pam Walker running for Corning mayor. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
We lost our son, Brett, to a glioblastoma. This was our last chance to show our community who he really was. Carpenters, Phillips, and Flint, they were so willing to create that ceremony however we wanted to do it. They could not have been more gracious.
You should consider them highly. You'll feel good about your thoughts and your decisions.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
When you're running, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
High school students, the Elmira Elks College Fair will be happening April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Elmira Elks Lodge, located at 300 East Gray Street in downtown Elmira. It's open and free to the public. There's free parking. There'll also be mascots as you come in. There'll be up to 50 colleges, representatives from technical schools, universities, in-state, out-of-state, 2-year, 4-year, public and private schools. If you're looking to transfer, this will be the college fair for you. Also a chance to win an instant scholarship drawing at 8 o'clock. Come down to the Elmira Elks College Fair on April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m.
Haley Livingston, Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio this morning, we have candidate for Corning Mayor, Pam Walker. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Frank.
We're going to learn about your background and about you, but why did you decide to take the big leap and get involved?
Well, it really all came about because I've been involved in the comprehensive plan update process. Right. I retired from a teaching career during COVID. There was a lot of nothing to do. And in a conversation with Bill, he'd invited me to be a part of the Planning Commission. So when the comprehensive plan update came up, it was something I was really looking forward to doing. I had a previous career as a city planner before moving to Corning. And so then later on down the line, when Bill said he was planning to step down, he asked me to think about becoming a candidate for mayor. I just went, I am not a politician. This is not me. But it ended up being something that I decided could be really helpful in terms of implementing the comprehensive plan.
So during COVID, when people were making their own meals and knitting, you decided to work on a comprehensive plan? That's kind of unique.
Well, a lot of this was Zoomable. And actually, back then, it was Planning Commission.
Just Planning Commission, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Now, you said you were previously a city planner. How do you think that will translate to the job as mayor here in Corning?
Well, I think it's helpful because I've seen how different government systems have worked, local government systems. I was a planner in California. I was a planner in Phoenix, Arizona. I was a planner in Central Florida. I know how government works, and so I'm pretty well prepared to come in and be a part of a city council because I've seen them before.
Now everybody's asking, why did you go from the warm weather to Corning, even though it's a beautiful day today? But why did you come here?
What a great question. My husband is an optics engineer, and we were considering a move up here for his job at Corning Incorporated, and he said, my wife will never move to a colder, smaller town. But I came here and I fell in love with it. I grew up in Pittsburgh. My dad's family's from central Pennsylvania, so this was kind of like coming home for me.
What was it that attracted you when you first got here to Corning?
I think the history of the place was part of it. Sure. We were living in a cinder block ranch house in Florida, which was beautiful weather, but not that attractive. Corning has so much charm, and I think everybody who lives here values that. But I think the other thing was that at that time, the big watchword in planning was traditional neighborhood development, where you could live in a community and walk to your job, not those kinds of subdivisions with curvilinear streets and things. Corning had that. And you drive down Denison Parkway and you see the Rockwell Museum building, and you can't but help being impressed by the city.
That's true, and we talked about your past in city planning, but tell us a little bit more about your background. You just announced kind of recently, I know the petition process, which we're going to talk about and complain about here in just a moment, but tell us about your background for those that don't know you.
Okay, well, I've been in Corning for 33 years now, which is hard for me to believe. I've raised 2 kids here. They are both fine young men working and living in one near Corning, one out in Idaho. During that process, I got involved in everything that my kids were a part of. I was a scout leader. I led a Cub Scout day camp. I was a band booster. I rode the bus to Florida several times on those overnight trips down to Disney and Universal. I also was a not-for-profit director, so I've worked with the community actually in the 3-county area and in adult literacy. And so that's a background that I think also helps me make this leap to the city council, because I know what it's been like to have to watch your budget to really pinch pennies. We counted paper clips in that agency. We were on the edge all the time.
That's good to know, because people are going to ask for you to do the same thing as mayor.
I realize that,
no, I joked about the petition process, and only because of the weather itself that makes it so inconvenient. But we like to highlight on this program for people wanting to get involved, whether it's run for office or help with the petitions, because we always say if you take out a petition for a candidate, you're their best friend for eternity, because it's such a process. You just getting into this process, what did you think of the petition season?
Well, I thought the party line petition season was cold.
Yes, I know.
January, February, March, the wind was blowing.
I know.
But you know what? It was really a treat to go out and meet people. Bill Boland organized that petition process, and he gave me the north side because it's an area where I know fewer people, and it was a great opportunity to talk to some folks and find out what's on their mind.
I think that's the best part, because we do complain about the weather aspect to it, but as somebody who's been a candidate themselves, I learned more knocking on the doors and what really affects people's day-to-day life that you're going to be directly affecting, I think it really is a beneficial process. It's just the weather stinks.
Yeah.
Right? We can all agree. That's bipartisan. That
That's
the weather.
right. That's right.
When you were knocking on doors, what were people telling you? What were their biggest concerns?
Streets were top of mind for a lot of
Oh,
people.
sure.
And we know during the wintertime we have potholes everywhere.
I know.
That was a huge thing. Sidewalk condition has also emerged as a big concern of people's. Walking around, I can see that the system is not continuous. You're on a part of a block where you're on a sidewalk, and then you're on grass and it's muddy, and you move to the street. And I'm also hearing from people that they're concerned about safe walking routes to the schools, the high school in particular. There are not too many crosswalks over in Houghton Plot where kids can cross over if they're heading to the high school.
That's a very interesting point. So those are things that, like I said, I would not have known if you didn't go knock on the doors and get those kind of suggestions. You mentioned Bill Bolin, by the way, and he's already endorsed you. He was out quick.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I really appreciate Bill's confidence in me. That means a lot.
Yeah. So when you look at running for mayor, and we're going to talk about the comprehensive because people want to know about that too. But what would you say, other than what you talked about from voters, what are your personal goals as mayor?
Well, one of the things that I so admire about what Bill has done is that he has made city government a cooperative effort.
Yes.
And I really want to continue that. And, you mentioned petitioning. I'm still circulating petitions now on an independent line. And I'm calling it the Common Ground line because I really want to find common ground with other members of the council to solve the problems that the city's facing. Big ones, implementing the comp plan. I mentioned before that's really what I'm mostly focused on. There are issues about housing affordability and housing condition, which, by the way, I heard a lot of from people when I've talked to them in the petitioning process. How can we deal with a number of abandoned houses in the community, empty lots? Economic development is another big concern. We have a lot of empty building sites, not just building sites, but empty buildings themselves. And some of them are industrial and corporate buildings. Some of them are shopping centers. Some of them are some of our older institutional buildings that have a lot of historic value. And we want to find a way to keep them vital and keep them part of the tax base.
And how has, when you've been knocking on doors and people learning about you and learning about your campaign, how has the support been overall?
It's been really gratifying. I've had a lot of support from the people I've talked to, and I appreciate that so much. Yeah.
Well, again, you never know, right, when you get into politics, and we always joke that everybody focuses on the national, right? And it's not really a joke, but when it gets to the local level, that kind of R&D just goes away, and it's more about, like you said, sidewalks.
That's right.
And the pothole in front of my driveway, those type of things.
Yeah, you want your water to be clean.
Right,
you want to be able to flush when it's time to flush. You want to be able to count on the police coming and the fire department coming when you call them, and those are really the issues of local government.
And I know last time we talked to Mayor Bolin on the show, which wasn't all that long ago, we were talking about the comprehensive plan because we wanted to spread the word. I know that's been a huge passion of his, and it sounds like it's obviously a passion of yours. How's that process going?
It's moving along pretty smartly now. We have a set of proposed recommendations, some goals, some strategies. We're working on putting together some projects. By the time this airs, we will have had another meeting of the committee. It's Thursday afternoon, but there are going to be opportunities for the public to get involved still ahead because the next step will be drafting the whole plan itself, and that'll be presented to the public in another workshop.
I've been pleasantly surprised about the public involvement with this. When you see the public forums and things like that you had, people weren't just sitting on the sidelines.
No, they came and they stayed and they talked with one another about the issues that we were presenting to them. They talked to the city staff, they talked to the consultants. That was really gratifying. We were really careful the last time we had workshops too to place them in different parts of the community. So we had one at Severn School, we had one at a church on the north side, we had one in the library, and we got a really wide range of ages and people from the community, and that was really good to see.
Was there anything that surprised you that you heard from the public?
I guess, maybe what was surprising is the amount of agreement about the vision that we have for the city.
Oh, that's nice.
I think there are all things that we can agree that we enjoy about Corning, and I think we all have some concerns that Corning stay the way that it is. The positive features that we enjoy about the community are there for others later.
Now, is there a time frame on the comprehensive plan?
Yeah. The deadline is by the end of the year, and I think we're really hoping to beat that by a couple of months.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, why is there specifically a deadline on it? As someone that doesn't understand.
Yeah, the process is grant funded by the state of New York, and so they give
That
us a
makes sense.
timeline.
Say no more. Now I understand with the grant process. Have you been proud of your work with the comprehensive plan?
I have. We've had a great team of consultants who've worked on it, and they've listened well to what the city's been doing, and they've given us back some great things to think about. The committee itself represents people from a wide variety of places in Corning,
Right.
so it's good to see everybody coming together and the civic engagement.
Well, again, we're talking with Pam Walker. She's candidate for Corning mayor. Just before we go, how can people help your campaign?
Answer the door when I come and knock. I'm going to be
tough?
carrying my petition around, and I'd love to meet more people. I'd really love to hear what people are thinking. I don't have social media up yet, but there will be a Facebook page soon.
And we'll have you on the program again. Obviously,
Wonderful.
there's plenty of time. Just to make it clear for people, because I'm going to be talking primaries a lot. We're talking about your campaign in November, so it's a ways off. We wanted to let people get to know you and know more about your campaign, and like you said, open the door.
Yeah, thanks.
Ring cameras are a blessing and a curse, aren't they? They're good for security, but I know when I'm knocking on to get petition signed and I'm wet from it raining and I look like a drowned dog, no one wants to answer the door. I wanted to answer the door for me, so it's quite a process. But thank you so much for giving us so much time, and let's talk again real soon, and keep us updated when the website and the Facebook page are
Will
up.
do. Thank you, Frank.
Great. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Driving the Nissan Rogue with Google built in is like the perfect assist.
Hey Google, add basketball hoop to the shopping list.
See why it's been named a Consumer Guide Best Buy for 11 years in a row. Drive the award-winning Nissan Rogue today.
Now get a low $249 per month lease on Rogue, or get up to $2,750 total savings on Rogue Rock Creek.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A quick announcement. I mentioned this earlier, might have been missed by a couple of viewers. That was pre-recorded. So we pre-recorded that interview with mayoral candidate Pam Walker. And the reason I mentioned that is because we received many insightful questions that we will have an opportunity to ask her in the future. This was just kind of a more meet the candidate interview. That's why it's pre-recorded. But as we near November, Election Day, we will have her on live in the studio, just so you know. So I didn't want you to think I was skipping your questions. They were great questions. That was just more of the initial kind of meet the candidate. And then from here on out, we'll have more in studio live during the broadcast. Okay, I promised you I would make a big announcement, and then we'll read your viewer comments from the last two segments. But next week on the program, we'll get you specific on Monday or Tuesday of when it'll broadcast. We are going to be speaking with the legendary Kyle Petty. he has this upcoming charity ride across America, and it is making a stop right here in Corning at the Radisson on Wednesday, May the 7th at 3:45. Look at the celebrities you can meet if you attend the kickoff at the Radisson. People like Richard Petty, Herschel Walker. Look at those names up there. Unbelievable. And we're going to be speaking to Kyle Petty about the charity ride, what we can do to help, to donate, to support, and learn more about what happens at that kickoff where you have the opportunity to meet some real legends there. So very excited about that. We'll keep you updated on what day that will broadcast, but I wanted to make that known to you so you can put that in your calendar to make sure you watch every weekday morning starting at 6. Okay, let's go to viewer comments, shall we? Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I would like to speak about the vitriol that Mr. Langworthy has to tolerate. I listened to the town hall last night. He had a teletown hall, and it seemingly was a coordinated attack. I was hoping to get information, but I was just sure Democrats that were more about political optics and supporters of the congressman. Yeah, I didn't not attend, or however you'd put that, dial in to the teletown hall. But that's interesting. So it was kind of hijacked, was it? Interesting. And then they wonder why representatives don't want to do in-person town halls, because they're not, like you said, like that viewer said, they wanted to learn information. They want to ask questions of their congressman. And what happened? It turned into, it sounds as if it turned into an attack. That's why I've been saying from the beginning, and I hate to keep using this term, but the town halls are not being done in good faith. That the people attending want to boo and hiss and get the optics, so that then they can show that to the local news crews or the national news, and they can say that every constituent is turning against their red district Republican congressperson because everybody hates Trump. It's so predictable. So thank you for passing that along. How bad was it? I'd love to hear more. Comment from a different viewer. I'm a long-time listener. Thanks, Colleen. Just a follow-up on the caller's comment regarding you mentioning hate often. I disagree. Thank you for your great communication to all your listeners. Enjoy the weekend. Well, thank you for the kind words. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Comment from a different viewer. They should call it, and this is in reference to the assisted suicide bill that's being proposed in Albany, they should call it a late-term abortion, not suicide. Then it will be okay. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be okay in Albany with the far left anyway. Comment from a different viewer. Yes, we got a lot of comments. Face mask legislation is holding up the budget. What? Does it cost money to pass a law prohibiting the use of masks? How much could it cost? Criminals are going to use masks whether or not there's a law against them, just as they will unlawfully use a gun in the commission of a crime. The use of a face mask is trivial and probably of no matter to a criminal, regardless of whether they are legal or not. Yeah, it's more to crack down on these anti-Semitic protests, that they're using the masks as a form of intimidation to Jewish community members. So it really stems from an incident on the subway, and it was a very big issue for a while, and Governor Hochul said she'd look into it, and then out of nowhere, after months of silence, actually proposed it, and some of the far left in Albany are not supporting it. Comment from a different viewer. Can't wake up till 7. Old age people need lots and lots of beauty sleep. Okay, and plastic surgery. So I miss that your leading topics of the day are, so my comments may not be with the flow. My comments are separate in topic with each other. New York State budget, FL, Florida, as in flourishing in 2023, ran their state on $110 billion. New York, as in not yet, or evermore, meaning NY, not yet, see, is kicking $250 million. Part 2. Queen Kathy wants to hire 5,000 female prison guards while refusing to hire 2,000 trained, experienced guards. Enough said. Yes, the 2,000 trained. We talked with Sheriff Allard about this yesterday. We in Steuben County are hiring, I think, swearing in on Wednesday, 8 of the fired corrections officers that Kathy Hochul fired. We are hiring 8 in Steuben County for the jail. So it's a shame this ever had to happen. Comment from a different viewer. It was great you had Sheriff Allard. on your show and addressed a new law requiring anybody driving a boat has to have a license. However, he didn't discuss the big loophole. If you rent a boat, you don't have to have a license. The owner, employee of the rental company has to explain the rule. I am guessing a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Take the course from the sheriff, it is 8 hours. The people renting are the worst ones for obeying the rules. I've experienced this firsthand. Example, so within 100 feet of docks, it is 10 miles per hour. I have seen 30 and 50 miles per hour. Also, when coming head-on, boats are supposed to move to the right. I had several move left, almost causing a head-on incident. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. I do appreciate it. A couple of quick stories. New York's Attorney General's office, Letitia James, has hired Hunter Biden's lawyer to defend her against the mortgage fraud accusations. You may remember this name. Criminal defense attorney Abby Lowell, who previously defended Hunter Biden against federal tax and gun charges. Boy, I don't know if that's the best. Well, Lowell, a partner of the Winston & Strawn LLP law firm, was hired by the Office of the New York State Attorney General and not retained personally by James. The decision to hire Lowell, a prominent white-collar defense lawyer, was based in part on the AG's office's belief that the bombshell criminal referral filed by Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Poult earlier this month was directly correlated to the civil fraud lawsuit James's office brought against Trump last year. She released a fiery response to Trump, calling it a revenge tour. It was actually a 5-page letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. All right, I'm not going to read the 5-page letter. That was just an update. So here's a big topic of the day, and I would love your thoughts on it because I've heard a difference of opinion. 2 days ago, or no, yesterday, I guess, Trump blasted Putin. He went on X, or on Truth Social, excuse me, and said, I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kiev. Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Now, he seems very upset. That did not stop Putin. Ukraine was hit by another night last night of deadly Russian strikes, despite Trump's Vladimir stop plea. That coming from CNN. They're using this as a criticism, of course, of Trump. But Trump blasted Putin, really, saying stop. Putin does not seem to be listening. He could be making a very big mistake there, that it meaning Putin. But Douglas Murray says that Trump's stop, and this is why I bring this all up to get your opinion, that Trump's stop is like Biden's don't, that it's an empty threat to a dictator. And we referenced that numerous times in the past where that was Biden's big go-to, which was don't. And of course, they ended up doing it. But today, President Trump continued that approach. That's according to Douglas Murray. His reaction to one of the biggest missile attacks in the past year was to tell Vladimir Putin to stop, as if Putin is listening. And then he goes through the history of this. We don't need to go through all of the history of the supposed peace deal. But do you believe it is going to be effective in the long term? Do you believe there is going to be a peace deal? I would love your thoughts on it. It seems to be the major story that the media is running with. Oh, wow, we get to take a break. Media is running with. But the Telegraph out of the United Kingdom is revealing, at least according to them, that China is help fueling Putin's war. And you can find this for yourself with the Telegraph out of the United Kingdom. But I don't think there's a surprise. We've talked about it on this program numerous times. We had a really great conversation with former Congressman Tom Reed quite a while ago about that kind of evil alliance between Russia, between Iran and China. Now, Iran has been hobbled a little bit, but it should come as no surprise that China is involved in Putin's war with Ukraine. That, according, again, to the Telegraph out of the United Kingdom. And they go through in this piece, we're not going to get into all the kind of wonkiness of the munitions and like that they are giving to Russia. But your thoughts on that. We also have, coming up after we take this break, numerous examples of judges stopping the President of the United States' orders. And then we're going to wrap things up. This show's going quick. We've had great discussions. Thanks again to Pam Walker, mayoral candidate, for being on the program. Keep your comments, keep your waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
In today's world, securing Your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We thank them for that beautiful view of Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Comment from a viewer. Ken writes in, interesting. James can be defended for her personal crimes with a high-priced lawyer. That will be paid for by taxpayers of New York. That seems as criminal as the charges against the person. The same person that said no one is above the law. Well, this is kind of reminiscent in a way of what happened with our former governor, Andrew Cuomo, as he was fighting those sexual harassment claims. It was being done on taxpayers' expense. As of last count, it was around $60 million of taxpayer expenses being used to defend the former governor who resigned in disgrace, that we were still on the hook. So it doesn't come as a surprise that Letitia James will be defended at the taxpayer's expense. But yes, it does seem very wrong. Now, here we go, a quick list. Trump's executive order mandating proof of citizenship to vote has been blocked by a federal judge. This comes after a flurry of legal setbacks. Yes, no longer, according to this judge, or at least blocked a portion of the executive order that was focused on election integrity. Specifically, they blocked the provision related to providing documented proof of citizenship before being allowed to register to vote. Judge Colleen Collar-Cotley of the U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia handed down the order in response to lawsuits filed by 3 separate groups of plaintiffs over 5 different provisions in a March 25th executive order. While Collar-Cotley dismissed requests to block 3 of the provisions, requests to block 2 other provisions pertaining to a proof of citizenship requirement for voters were granted. The first block provision sought to compel the Election Assistance Commission to amend standardized national voter registration forms to require documentary proof of citizenship. The second sought to require federal agencies offering voter registration to people on public assistance to assess the individual's citizenship status before doing so. This is what Collar-Cotley wrote. By the way, Collar-Cotley, a Clinton appointee, and in the District of Columbia, Washington District of Columbia. Our Constitution entrusts Congress and the state, not the president, with the authority to regulate federal elections. Consistent with the allocation of power, Congress is currently debating legislation that would affect many of the changes the president purports to order. Then, adding on to that, on Thursday, President Trump's administration asked the Supreme Court to allow enforcement of... let me take a step back on this one. This was Trump-appointed judge orders return of the second alleged gang member deported to El Salvador. A federal judge appointed by President Trump in this instance ordered his administration to facilitate the return of another alleged migrant gang member who was deported to El Salvador last month. U.S. District Judge Stephanie Gallagher ruled that the Trump administration violated a settlement agreement that a group of asylum seekers reached with the Biden administration's Department of Homeland Security last year when it deported the 20-year-old Venezuelan national identified in court filings only as Kristen under the 1978 Alien Enemies Act. Gallagher was appointed to her spot on the Maryland District Court in 2019 during Trump's first term. Quote, like Judge Paula Zenas in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia matter, this court will order defendants to facilitate Kristen's return to the United States so that he can receive the process he was entitled to under the parties' binding settlement agreement, Gallagher wrote. So more instances of judges thwarting the Trump agenda. Now, piggybacking off of that El Salvador issue, on a broadcast on News Nation, Representative Adam Smith, a Democrat, said that one thing preventing Congress from passing legislation that would include stronger border security is, quote, a number of us believe that there are a lot of people in this country, undocumented, who should be allowed to stay. They have been a vital part of our economy. They're vital parts of our community. They're husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, working, paying taxes. We have depended upon their labor for decades, and to rip those families apart and send them back to countries that in many cases they don't even know, we believe would be wrong. So Democrats want pathway to citizenship for some undocumented immigrants, and then a lot of us are wide open to talking about toughening the asylum laws and getting to greater security. So Democrat Representative Adam Smith saying many Democrats want a lot of illegal immigrants to stay, and that would kind of piggyback after Chris Van Hollen went to El Salvador to demand that alleged MS-13 gang member Garcia be returned to the United States. We got to take a short break. Then wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, get your last minute comments in, and we'll be right back after this.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
High school students, the Elmira Elks College Fair will be happening April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Elmira Elks Lodge, located at 300 East Gray Street in downtown Elmira. It's open and free to the public. There's free parking. There'll also be mascots as you come in. There'll be up to 50 colleges, representatives from technical schools, universities, in-state, out-of-state, 2-year, 4-year, public and private schools. If you're looking to transfer, this will be the college fair for you. Also a chance to win an instant scholarship drawing at 8 o'clock. Come down to the Elmira Elks College Fair on April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m.
Big Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. A couple of quick comments. To get almost any kind of assistance or license from the government, Americans have to provide proof of citizenship. Why wouldn't immigrants have to do the same? Where are the minds of these rogue judges? Thank you very much. A quick couple of relatively breaking stories that I want to mention before we head out the door. The president plans to direct the Justice Department to investigate Act Blue. You may recall the name Act Blue. It was the main Democratic fundraising platform, one used heavily by Kamala Harris. He directed the Justice Department to investigate Act Blue, according to a person briefed on the preparations. The move steps up Republican efforts to cripple their opponent's political infrastructure, according to the clearly biased New York Times with that last sentence. Who are the people leaking this information to the New York Times? That is something that I think Trump has signaled he is going to take very seriously. Trump administration will also boost the Gulf of America oil production by 100,000 barrels a day under the new drilling policy. The Interior Department is helping to increase oil production in the newly renamed Gulf of America by 100,000 barrels per day under a new policy following President Trump's executive order. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum announced that all offshore oil drilling in the Gulf will now be able to tap multiple reservoirs at the same time and at a far higher pressure than previously allowed to immediately boost output by around a 10%. We also learned that they are streamlining the permit process that would take years in the past, now down to just 28 days. And the energy resources which will be included in the fast-tracked permitting process include crude oil, natural gas, lease condensate, natural gas liquids, refined petroleum products, uranium, coal, biofuels, geothermal energy, kinetic hydropower, and critical minerals. And finally, I don't know why I'm ending a program on this note. George Santos, recall that name? He is facing a possible 87 months in prison. On Friday, a federal judge will sentence the disgraced former congressman to a minimum of 2 years in prison, up to, and even Santos himself saying he expects a harsher sentence, up to 87 months. He said, quote, "Right now, my expectation is I'm going to prison for 87 months. I'm totally resigned." And on that note, one last comment from a viewer. The price of gas has been significantly reduced. Very good point. Thank you for all the comments this morning and for all the comments all week. And we want to thank our guest, Pam Walker, who is running for mayor here in Corning. We've got a busy week. Next week, we're going to kick off Monday with Chris Cals, tell you all about the college fair coming up next Wednesday. And later in the week, we're going to talk with racing legend Kyle Petty. So busy week next week. That's why I have to tune in every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will see you bright and early Monday morning. Look forward to it already.
It's spring, and Bath Planet has one question for you. Do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Bath Planet is excited to announce the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. In the past 2 years, we have given away 4 brand new Dream Baths, and now it's your turn. The winner will be able to design their own bath or shower, complete with hundreds of color and pattern options, multiple shelf styles, and matching safety features. It's the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.